Hey, team players, welcome back. Today, we're going to really be highlighted on the crazy value that we see in these drafts. We're using Underdog today, so half PPR, but there is so much value that we're going to walk through the duration of the show. Things that are really league winners, and you can take advantage of now. And don't get me wrong, $250,000 pays the same day on week 17, whether you win that draft today or whether you do it back in August. Now is when you get extreme value. This is when you should be doing it. And welcome to Local Football Flavor. So, Bob, man, this is exciting. Another day, another draft, man. I love them.
Another day, another dollar.
That's right. That's right. Right. And that's what we're doing here today. And we're going to be doing on Underdogs unless, of course, they hate me for some reason. I don't know why location services stopped working.
Well,
these are small miracles, Bob.
Like I said, I think every piece of technology is like messed up right now because, like I said, I cannot open properly my Reddit app, and I am just not sure why. It's really annoying. I was able to look up stuff earlier today on just about like politics, our city and all that other stuff. But now it's not even, I guess I have to delete it and just try the website and see what happens.
I guess I'm trying to find out, but not to get all off topic of technology, guys. Like maybe my ad blocker is blocking this and it's not, and I have no idea. I got a location failure, so
that I've been having way more problems with technology in the last
so we're going to DraftKings, guys.
5 days than I've had at any other point in time. Like, look, the website works fine. Why is the app not working? That's just dumb.
These are the questions of life, man.
I like to use the app better. It's way more streamlined. But then, for all my stupid shit that I watch, actually.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have that too.
Like California, have that too. California just opened back up that one thing. I mean, it's funny, but I can't say it on air. But anyway, we're here to talk football. So
we are. So you can fast forward to that last part if you didn't want to hear about football.
Funny news. I was watching. This is that time of year where there's a lot of just rumors going around.
So many.
A lot of unfounded rumors at the same time going around. And one of the funny rumors that I came across, it was I believe his name was Jackson on TikTok. He's fairly an entertaining watch. And
I love that.
I was watching him today, and he was saying that, one of the sources close to the Browns is saying that there's a potential conversation that's been happening between the Browns and the Cowboys that's saying that the Cowboys, again, rumor mill is surging.
This is like so asinine.
that Dak would be on the move because Myles Garrett was like, "Oh, I'm only going to sign if Dak comes to Cleveland." That Dak would sign with Cleveland. So that the Cowboys can take Shadur. I mean, let's talk about unfounded weird rumors. But that to me is like peak rumor mill.
Yeah, it never would happen.
Things that never will happen. But it's interesting on how that could potentially change the landscape. If something like that crazy thing were to happen, it would totally change the landscape and the outlook.
Oh yeah, because CeeDee Lamb becomes useless.
Like for Cleveland, it would totally change the landscape for Dallas. Two teams that, sometimes we're polar opposites on. But again, rumors are rumors made up by computers. So
where we're at, isn't it?
You've got to kind of wade through the mud on a couple of things. But, a lot of people weren't saying that Russ was going to go to the Giants after they signed Jameis Winston. And stranger things have happened. I mean, like, what did we get a couple years back where DeAndre Swift was on the move on draft day to Chicago from Detroit, and Detroit drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. So, I mean, we have seen crazier things happen. But again, I think that's a good thing to keep in mind as we start these, or as we continue to work on building up our portfolios and best balls to figure out where possible good correlations are, where it is that we could, especially in the later rounds. Hey, Jesse, what's up, man? So we're sitting here. I like the 9 spot. This is going to open up the
Not a
door to a
bad
couple
spot.
different. This is going to open up the door to a couple different possibilities. Mainly, we've been talking about this over the last couple of days, and yeah, I really do think that when we look at Cleveland as a whole, there's a part of me that thinks that Abdul Carter is a great pick for them, but there's a part of me knowing that Cleveland is still Cleveland.
No, they're going to take Sanders because of that.
And I think that Cleveland will probably lock in a quarterback. The thing that makes me a little bit interested in this as well is the potential suitors that may or may not want to move up for a guy like Shedeur.
No one should want him. Stand on it.
You look at teams that have moved up for worst quarterbacks.
Cleveland's done it.
And I asked myself, if Cleveland goes out and gets Shedeur, do the Giants stick pat with their pick and take Abdul Carter? Do they take Travis Hunter? Or do they try to trade back for teams that want some of those guys? But again, Cleveland is Cleveland. And I think that they have a good enough team this year that maybe they want to go, maybe they do want Shedeur to make that team potentially get more wins, but their defense is pretty solid. So
there's no scenario where Shedeur Sanders will be,
but I will say though,
a top 20 quarterback.
If Cleveland goes with an offensive weapon that isn't Shedeur and they don't go with Abdul Carter on defense,
go Hunter.
It's very interesting what Travis Hunter could be for them.
Again, you go to Cleveland, you might as well throw your career away. It's like going to Jacksonville. You're not going to do anything with it. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was supposedly the best quarterback prospect since John Elway. He couldn't do anything in Jacksonville.
The Golden Boy.
The place are cursed.
The Golden Boy, he hasn't been surrounded by the very, very best of talent, but they did have. I mean, he did. There was a year that he was
20 first-round picks in the top 5.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying that if the Cleveland Browns don't take Abdul Carter, there could be a potential trade suitor at the number 3 position. Maybe somebody wants him. Maybe somebody wants Shedeur
I could see
a little
Vegas
bit more.
Moving up. Where I see it, I really think that it's going quarterback. I hope it goes quarterback. But Ward is certainly going to be the first pick in this draft in Tennessee. That's the thing.
I've even heard.
I hope Cleveland takes.
And again, we're talking
just like I hope Puka drops to me here at 9.
Yeah, Puka will probably get there. You might. I think
Puka's going. So Bob, I'm leaning Puka, Ahmad, or Collins. Actually, I'm going to be leaning Puka or Collins in that order.
How about
Well, Collins just went.
I was just going to say like this could be the one where we go Amon-Ra. Yeah, I'm okay. Like I said, I think those guys are head and shoulders.
So we did a Puka one on Monday, so we can get Collins. Let's do him to spice it up a little bit. Because I like Stroud more than I like. So let's go Collins. Let's spice it up, and maybe we'll get lucky on Henry on the turn, or one of the elite backs on the turn.
We talked on Monday that I like Neighbors with competent quarterback play. I think that Neighbors could be a really, really great option this year.
Oh, I agree with that. I just don't think he'll come back to it.
To this point, and as we were talking with Ant as well, the Giants. I think
I agree with that, Jesse. I want the Giants to draft Hunter.
When we look at the Giants from last year and like all their draft capital from years past, I think one of the things that they do miss by not having Saquon Barkley is having they never really have more than one explosive weapon at a time. It feels like maybe that's wrong in my assuming that.
No, you're pretty much right.
But
Odell never had a good running back by him, and don't tell me Barber was, guys, because that's not true. But Odell never had an elite guy around. I'm not going to
talk smack on that, but I will say that in the last 10 years or so, it really feels like they've been a collection of a hodgepodge of different guys that have been good at different things, but not really too explosive at the same time. So I think that if they had an opposite, even if they play Travis Hunter like 30% on offense or something like that. I think that having him opposite Malik Neighbors could really do wonders for that offense and move that. Like, you wouldn't even have to worry about having Tyrone Tracy as your running back. It'd be really nice. And I really, looking at the start that we're sitting at here, Joe, there's going to be.
I'm basically A-chain is what I want.
A-chain's a good start. Yeah.
Although I know I'll be able to get these rookie running backs I'm really in love with that are going to go in the first round, but are undervalued.
Let's not.
Pick's probably a receiver.
Let's see what happens here.
AJ Brown stands out.
I'm okay with AJ.
Yeah, okay. Because I really want to be able to get. We've been able to get Henderson and Hampton in the 4th and 5th rounds at the 9th-ish spot, and they are steals.
One of the
absolute steals.
One of the players that we haven't talked about in a couple of weeks, actually. There goes Bucky, my boy.
Bucky is your boy, but I'd rather have Brown than Bucky.
A-Chan and Bucky team, I think, could potentially be elite this season. I was in one of these rooms yesterday that had some guy drafted 5 running backs and had no wide receivers by like the 7th round, which I thought was absolutely asinine. But back to what I wanted to say is that a guy that we were really high on walking into this season, and a guy that I think that we've forgotten about lately because of the various draft positions that we've been at, Devontae Adams with an early in 2nd round pick there. I like that. Is Ladd, right? We haven't talked about
Ladd. Was overpriced at the 2. I still think Ladd's overpriced. Now, granted, we were doing half PPR when I was standing by that, but I think Ladd's a 3rd rounder. That's what it should be. Maybe an early 3rd, but that's where I'm at. And I love Ladd. Don't get me wrong.
But Ladd is providing. I think when we take a look at end of the 2nd, early 3rd, that if you're sitting there and you have a chance to build Ladd, which I have been at certain points in time, it's really, really tempting. Really, really tempting. Yeah, most likely. Joe, we were going to do an underdog today, but we had to get into a DraftKings instead. The dollar ones on DraftKings fill up pretty fast.
Oh no, this is a $10 DraftKings. Sorry.
Yeah, but still,
I mean, DraftKings is crazy. DraftKings isn't established yet.
The CD, I've done a CD and A-Chan start, and it's goated. Like, I mean, like that to me. These guys picking quarterbacks in the 2nd round when they could have 2 tremendous assets otherwise really doesn't track.
There is something to the beginning of the year. You just see what will stick, but this is why there is extreme values, because people are doing asinine things. So
like that back half of the 2nd round here is crazy to me. Like I was just saying, like Ladd hasn't
Ladd shouldn't be on the board right now.
He's going to be taken off the board really soon.
That was an auto draft of Ladd, but
I think that
dude, JT might slide to us here. That'd be crazy.
No, he won't slide. But I think Ladd early 3rd round, when you've already established or could have potentially established a team like Jefferson, Drake London, and Ladd, I think that's a fabulous start moving into this season, to be honest with you. All those guys could potentially be above 100 catches. And especially when we're looking at the value of that in a DraftKings lobby here, where it's full PPR, that has insane value. And the fact of the matter is, with like a guy like JT falling like that, because he doesn't have any PPR, like a full PPR framework there. A lot of running backs being taken off the board, Joe. What wide receivers are left here?
There is Evans is left. He's the one who's staring me in the face. Your boy Wilson's here too. Evans is the one I want though.
But what is the top wide receivers available?
All right, so reading the top of the list of receivers is T. This is the order DraftKings has them ranked: T, Njigba, McLaurin, Evans. Evans is the one who stands out to me.
I was just gonna say Jackson Smith. I built a team the other day with JSN as my 3rd wide receiver. I was really liking that.
Oh yeah, and how don't you like a team with Evans as your 3rd receiver?
An early
He's going to be a top 10 guy every year.
An early Najee just happened, which is interesting. There goes T. All right.
So I think I'm going Evans. It's either Evans or James Cook, but I think I'd rather go with this.
Let's take Evans and see if
Seeing
Cook
how
lasts
much of
around.
this draft board is green going running backs,
It's a lot
I
of green
really think
early.
our rookies have a chance of dropping back to us.
A lot of green early. A lot of green early. I think that the Giants probably will invest in a
Dude, if
day
they get
two.
Genty at 3, that'd be crazy. But I think they're more likely to take one in the second round.
Yeah, I think they're more likely to take a day 2 running back.
Which is
You
a ton
know,
of great ones.
there's a lot of value. You know, there are many content creators out there that have been talking about guys like RJ Harvey, have been talking about guys like we've been talking about Dylan Sampson. You know, there's benefits and
And
pros and
for the
cons to
record,
all
I
those
just want to
running
put this
backs.
out here. I've rewatched the tape. I have jumped Sampson over Tootin. And you know how much I love Tootin.
Well, again, there's benefits to each one of these running backs. Devin Neal is another example. I mean, there are plenty of running backs available that if the Giants wanted to go out and get a running back on day 2 after they've solidified some of the other things that they maybe want to solidify, there's going to be availability. I mean, Quinshon Judkins is probably going to be a second, third round guy. They could, most likely get him there. The biggest debacle, that we've seen, the Barkley, letting Barkley go was, unequivocally a terrible decision. But also when you think about it in framework of like other leagues and other bad decisions, like we're talking like Luka to the Lakers bad, like letting go of Barkley is incredibly bad. Letting go of Luka.
Bob, I think we're playing an auto pick draft right now at this point.
And then I think that a couple of
so the guy at 1-6, you wanted to come watch our ideas. Love it.
AKP. So you're Ant. All right, Ant KP. I got it. Get him to come over. Perfect. So Lucy Raines is sitting up there. All right. Let's see what he cooks up. I mean, I like his team so far. Bijan is a great start, especially if you can get him at 6. That's insane to me. 3 running backs. What's good, KP? I think sitting here, Joe, I wouldn't be mad going another wide receiver here, to be honest with you. I know you want a running back, but
with Cook going, I'm okay with that. Looking at the running back board, it's Harrison, DJ, Worthy, Zay, and we're up Devontae.
I'd say DJ or Worthy I'd be okay with. I'd be okay to take a stab at Marv too. I know I'm talking shit.
I like Marv, Worthy
recently, but either one. I think all 3 have the potential to, have a week that could make them into the flex or go into the 3 wide receiver set.
And we talked a little bit on Monday about we expecting the second year guys to step up. There's no reason to think Worthy shouldn't be part of that conversation as well.
Also, I want to say this. One of the guys that we haven't talked about
and clarification, his lawsuit shit went away. So
one of the things that we haven't talked about in a couple of weeks, and I want to just bring it back up, is how we feel and how most of the world or most of the viewing audience may feel about the Houston Texans going into this year. One of the biggest things that Houston doesn't have going for it right now is their offensive line. And one of the things,
they're working on it.
They just got rid of Tunsil, and they're probably going to be building offensive line coming up in this draft, hopefully. But I think one of the tremendous values when we talk about extreme values in terms of what we can see in this specific draft and in other drafts is Joe Mixon in the 4th round. I really feel that if Houston gets their stuff together on offensive line, and now with Kirk and Nico both assumedly healthy, with Stroud passing them the ball, that if they can continue to move this ball downfield in the way that they need to, there's going to be plenty of red zone opportunities for a guy like Joe Mixon. Now, one of the things about Joe Mixon that was rough last year is that when Houston was really out of the game, Joe Mixon wasn't seeing the ball a lot. When Houston was, just up and they were enjoying a lead, he was getting a lot more carries, was capable of going over 100 yards. But looking at all the backs, because Najee even went early in this draft too, but looking at all of the running backs there, that I think, because we were talking on Monday about 2nd round guys and 3rd round guys, I'm very, very comfortable. Very comfortable, Joe.
Well, we're in another 6-man draft. There's only 6 people who have a chance in this draft.
Slotting Joe Mixon into my lineup. I will say that I'm very comfortable with slotting him in there. Again, though, if there are a bunch of auto drafters in this $10 DK, that doesn't bode well for getting some of these rookies that are slotted higher. So,
We'll see,
prioritizing
because
those.
we're queued for Hampton and Henderson on this turn. And we got to settle for Hubbard. We'd settle for Hubbard, but that's who
I
we're
think
queued
I'd like.
for.
I actually think that I'd like to go Hubbard and Henderson,
All right. Well, you're more likely to get it in the auto draft community because
or Hubbard and Hampton. Oh, family.
Hubbard is behind Hampton, so that's why you're more likely to get him.
You know me, and I have talked so much shit on Christian Kirk as
but I love him.
Jaguar.
He's a good guy to throw on the board. Let's do it. This is becoming a Houston stack, guys.
I have talked so much about how I didn't like Christian Kirk's value on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, yeah.
And it was mainly tied to Trevor Lawrence. I didn't feel like necessarily that Trevor is capable of supporting two good wide receivers at the same time. I think he can support one, but not two really fantasy relevant players. But I think CJ Stroud has proven to us. I think CJ Stroud has proven to us at least this year and last year that he can support fantasy relevant performances from multiple wide receivers. So
as long as they stay healthy,
I'm excited about Kirk. The problem is if you're building a Houston stack, like if you build like the Nico, the Kirk, and then the Stroud, Kirk and Stroud almost have to be taken back to back.
Yeah,
they do. It locks you out of a couple of players. So it's not the best.
But at the end of the day, dude, we already have our 4 receivers. Like, it's not like we need to go
when you're facing auto. When you're facing auto drafters, people will come for Kirk a little bit higher.
You just need to be ahead of it.
So Lucy.
So there's your guy. God, this guy 1-6 is listening to us. We just said we were taking Hampton, and here he is.
Oh, another guy. So Ken Walker. Ken Walker is a much maligned guy in my eye as well. But in recent drafts, I've been trying to take a little bit more Ken Walker when I've been doing them on my own. One of the reasons why is that Kubiak is probably going to provide a system for Ken Walker to use his abilities. Now, he's a pretty gifted back, but as I said last year, he wasn't getting a lot of carries. I mean, by most of the way through the season, he only had 99 carries, which is awful for where he was at, but he was also hurt a lot. And I will say this, that if you're building a team and you're waiting for the 4th round to start getting running backs, you can go for those rookie guys like we've been talking about, like the Hamptons and the Hendersons and all that. But you can probably also slot yourself into a Joe Mixon, Ken Walker, or Chuba Hubbard, plus one of those rookies.
See, I don't like Mixon. I'm okay with Hubbard and Walker. I think Mixon's getting out-drafted this year. I just don't know which one of them yet. I'm all the way down. Like, Scattaboo is the line. Every running back above Scattaboo is better than Mixon.
I disagree.
That's like 6 of them.
I disagree that
both of Ohio State guys I'd rather have over Mixon.
I will say though that Mixon is one of those players that I'm never, like I said, this year I am comfortable drafting more of him because of his value. But I'm not, like, if I had to take Mixon in the 2nd or the 3rd round, I wouldn't be comfortable taking him.
If Mixon survives the draft, you're going to have to.
But so that's round,
one of the debates. Do you think Mixon? If you think Mixon survives the draft,
I think he does.
Incredible value. I just don't think he does.
I don't think Houston's going to invest in a running back with their early picks because their offensive line is ass.
Well, again, I think a 2nd rounder will jump. No,
Mixon. Honestly, I don't think they're going to go 2nd, 3rd round running back because they have hurt wide receiver. Like, they have Tank Dell, who's hurt. They probably would want to shore up that a little bit more. Dalton Schultz is just okay. They probably want to go after a tight end. They need offensive line help dreadfully.
Now they're in win mode now. A tight end that early is going to be helping win.
No, now. I'm not saying
tackle
early,
does. An O lineman 1, running back 2 to me makes.
I'm saying if I'm looking at the first 4 rounds, they need to do something that's related to not running back.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is and once you get to the 4th round, running backs Mixon safe. Do you? Like I said, the entire question comes down to: do you think Houston takes a day 1 or 2 running back?
I don't think so at all.
And I think they do. That's the difference.
I don't think they would invest the capital to do that with their other needs.
Dude, there was so much part of that year where Mixon couldn't get the hard yardage, and that's why they kept being in 3rd and long, and Stroud was getting assassinated. Yeah, the line sucked. No one's fighting that. But getting an extra 2 yards of carry wouldn't hurt either. And Mixon just wasn't able to do that. And remember, when Mixon wasn't there, they couldn't do anything. And that's why I think they're going to get it, if for no other reason, to have a number 2.
But we look at it, we say the same thing about a guy like Najee, right? Najee in the, like, this guy took Najee in the 3rd round, which is definitely an overdraft.
Sure is.
But one of the things that I've said about Najee, and one of the things that I like Najee on the Chargers. He's going to get opportunities as long as J.K. Dobbins doesn't come back or another running back stepping into that role. But I will say that was one of the fundamental problems with Najee as well.
So, family, with the Houston has Pierce too. Houston hates Pierce. They've given him basically less than no opportunities to ever succeed. And in those half of games when Mixon was out, Pierce didn't really produce. They don't like Pierce. Well, and they probably single-handedly ruined his career.
Well, Pierce as a fantasy asset, I think, is done.
It's over.
I mean, we've seen Singletary have some good games.
All right, you're watching us, Luca. Who you picking? Oh, Bob's boy Olave. Love it.
I like Chris Olave. And I especially like, so last year when you guys were watching us, I didn't like taking Chris Olave because Chris Olave's value was 2nd round value. And he is not a 2nd round fantasy guy. But when I look at it and I can get Chris Olave in the 6th round after I've already filled out part of my lineup, he's my win. And Lucy, he's the 4th wide receiver on your team. Like, that's a win, because if he booms for 25 points, perfect. If he shoots down for 10, okay, whatever. You didn't take him in the 2nd round. And I think that his value is perfect. He's a perfect value in that 6th round. And, especially if you're going to build like a potential NFC South kind of correlated stack, because the NFC South defenses are just okay. Taking him along with like a guy like Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield to kind of get a nice correlation in at least 2 games in the season, I think will be pretty solid. I think that Olave is a guy that I'm really going to be targeting there.
Love the Olave call out, and also love the fact that some of you guys have multi channels you're following us with. We keep them straight somewhat. Like, we know Recon.
Okay, let me
Recon has too.
I heard a terrible, or I can't remember what it was. It was either I was watching it or reading it, and somebody goes, some analyst said that the Washington Redskins will take a running back with one of their top couple of picks.
Oh, they could. They already said they're debating trading Robinson.
And what I look at, and I see Brian Robinson going off in the 6th round, 7th round at times. To me, that's an awful pick.
Robinson's going to get out drafted.
Brian Robinson will not be most of our teams. Joe, this is Quinton Judkins, right?
In all probability, yeah.
Okay.
Because Parasol would have been the other guy I was debating.
I like
with.
Parasol a lot. Parasol as a 4th.
All right, but the problem is, if this is an auto pick, we're not going to get him because Judkins is the top of the board right now.
Pickens would have been all right there too.
I like Pickens more than you. I really think that.
Well, I like him as a 4th, 5th guy. I don't like him as, like, if I'm building early running backs, I'm probably not.
We're going to be auto picks. We're going to lose Judkins to the auto pick. Oh, we did it! Nice, major win. Rather have Judkins than Warren.
Speaking of 2 running backs that could potentially not be fighting for a job this year as significantly as they might be at this point in time, is Brian Robinson and Jaylen Warren. Another player that we talked about early on in the season. I just took this one player in a draft yesterday because I was like, I'll get something in him. I took a Pacheco in like the 8th round in a draft the other day.
Just like that pick on fire.
And I was like, he was like my 4th. I think I pulled like a 4 running backs like you did down the line here. After starting pretty wide receiver heavy there.
This pick's gonna be blue, Bob.
I want to talk about Pacheco for a moment after we make this pick. Who do we want here?
Who's my tight end I take, Bob?
Don't take him here. Please don't. Please.
I'm 100%. Because our next pick after that is going to be our lineup for our stack. And I'm not going to get into the auto draft anyway.
Oh my God. Are you serious right now? Dude, I'm telling you, you have to stop.
You're going to be sitting this at week 3 being like, oh my God, I can't believe I talked this much shit on Tyler Warren the entire offseason.
Well, family, we're glad you're here because
Again, I would take him all the way up in the 4th.
I hear you, but you don't hear
and
me.
I got him in the 8th.
And
I
think that's a problem, a general problem when it comes to Tyler Warren.
Why? He's going to have too many targets to be able to handle it?
No. So, okay. So there's just a couple things, right?
He's better than Tracy.
When we look at, I want to talk about Isaiah Pacheco for a moment, but I also want to talk about Tyler. I'm going to start with Isaiah Pacheco.
Finish your Pacheco. I'm sorry, I just blew your
mind. One of the things that we said last year, and one of the things that we noted last year, was that there was no way Isaiah Pacheco was going to come back from injury that early. And he looked really bad after coming back from that injury when he got brought back. And so as we sit here today, there's a couple different viewpoints for Isaiah Pacheco. They signed Hunt back. They also signed Elijah Mitchell. So there is a very strong likelihood that Kansas City, tries to go out and get one of these running backs in the draft. But I'm very, very curious about the usage for Isaiah Pacheco coming up in this season. With those two other running backs signed, what does his usage look like? And will he have his explosion back? Because coming back from a broken fibula is going to be really rough. And you knew it wasn't going to be well just early on, like for the playoffs.
He's probably never playing again.
But if he comes back, I'm just curious about it. Like, like I said, I'm not overdrafting a guy like Pacheco. I'm actually just like not drafting him at all usually. But I was like,
someone's going to get a home run on Caleb Johnson.
I'm going to see what happens here. Can you scroll down so we can see the draft board?
My bad.
I'm just really curious. I just am intensely curious about Pacheco. A lot of quarterbacks just came off the board there.
Yeah, dude. I feel like that just makes me have to go Stroud first.
Fields climbing really high. One of the reasons why, just going back on Taylor, family, I'll get to that question in a moment. Just getting back to Tyler Warren for a moment. I would really, if Travis Hunter was there, I would really like that. That would have been nice. Who do you want here?
So I know the next two guys after us are an auto pick.
Okay.
Would have loved Caleb Johnson there.
That would have been really nice. See, I would have liked Ayuk in round 8 instead of Tyler Warren.
Dude, if Golden's on the board, I want to take him.
That's fine. I'm okay with that.
So I'm probably going to go there.
But again, if you're building Christian
Kirk,
if you're going Christian Kirk and CJ Stroud, you got to go do it now.
What's that?
If you're building Christian Kirk and CJ Stroud, I think you got to do it now.
I think so too. So this would be Stroud because he's more important than Kirk, and then the next one will be Kirk. Dude, with the 4 receivers we already have, the quarterback's more important. We got to get stacked.
I mean, I see it. I think Kirk will go. If he's within the top 5, he'll go.
He's not.
Right now. Okay.
He is right now 7th out.
Okay. So there's a possibility. But back to Tyler Warren is that it's not, like I've said multiple times, it's not that I don't think that he's talented. It's not that I don't think that he could land in a very good situation. It's prognosticating the situation that I have a hard time with right now, is that when we look at potential landing spots for Tyler Warren, it's the discussion of, okay, Indianapolis, potentially. Then we look at potentially Denver. I know they just signed Evan Ingram, but potentially he goes to Denver. And then we look at the Chargers, okay? Those are 3 teams that potentially have a tight end in the first 2 rounds of the draft this year.
Mm-hmm.
If he lands on Indianapolis, I think that will be dog shit. I think you disagree with me on that.
Oh, I do.
But when we look at Indianapolis's passing game on the whole, it's not incredibly impressive. One of the things that Anthony Richardson does really well is he pushes the ball down the field, but he only passes the ball up to 21 times a game.
I don't think he's going Indy, Bob. I think he's going before Indy.
That again, but one of the reasons why I'm hedging my bets here on a guy like Tyler Warren and not overdrafting him before we get to family's question here. One of the reasons why I really don't like him in the 8th, I like him more in the 9th, is the fact that you always
like people when they're cheaper.
Well, no, I like him in the 9th because when I look at the 8th round, I can see myself slotting in Ayuk or Travis Hunter, which I think have bigger boom potential on a weekly basis than Tyler Warren. And I don't want to give up potential boom in one of those rookies or an Ayuk and over a guy like Tyler Warren. But if Tyler Warren were to slip to the ninth, I'd be okay with that. But the problem is that in a Houston stacked correlated build, you know, building that CJ Stroud kind of locks you out of some of these wide receivers that are in this kind of same area. And
But
Tyler
again, I
Warren,
look at our receivers; they're not going to hit
no,
anyway.
listen. Tyler Warren doesn't really. If he goes to Indy, it's a nice little correlation. If he goes to the Chargers, I think it's a better situation if he were to land on the Chargers. I don't know if he'll last that long. And then the other slot would be Denver, and I think that his value in Denver would be okay as well. But for all intents and purposes, it really feels like Indianapolis is going to draft him, and I just don't see the value in Indianapolis. I just don't see it. And for that reason, I can't take him in the 8th. For the same reason you don't want to take Josh Downs and you don't want to take Michael Pittman, I wouldn't want to take Tyler Warren for the same price.
See, mine is all just value, man. I think that he's like legitimately the best. They're going to be. I think he's going to be a top 3 tight end this year, and I just don't know how to say that.
It's fair. I get it. I understand.
And I don't care where I get him. Anywhere past the 4th, it's a win.
I understand where you're coming from.
Bob, I'm kind of thinking here. Well, let's see what Lucy does. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking here another quarterback's the direction I want to go because they are flying fast. And I'm basically debating between Penix and Tua. Maybe I take both and just call it a day at quarterback.
Well, we don't really have any other there. So yeah, there goes Tua. I'd be okay with Penix. This is a low floor quarterback room though. So I'm a little worried about that, but Penix is okay.
I think Penix will have a decent step forward. I think Stroud's gonna be a stud. Let me start with that. I think Stroud has a chance to be a top 5 quarterback. I really do, despite the fact he's a pocket guy.
I disagree. I think he can have top 5 weeks, but I don't think he will land top 5 overall in the quarterback market.
All right, so we just did Penix. Do you just want to do Pitts and call it a day at both tight end and quarterback for a while?
I really hate you.
Fair enough. Not doing it then.
This is the second draft where you're drafting Kyle Pitts.
I'm not going to draft him.
Listen. If you're drafting Penix, just take Pitts because you want a little bit of correlation there. If Penix is to go off,
well, we already
you want
Penix,
a pass catcher.
So.
You don't have a pass catcher. I don't really like taking uncorrelated quarterbacks that don't run the ball. Like both CJ Stroud and Penix aren't running quarterbacks, so you want to correlate them. If you're going to have an uncorrelated Penix, it makes no sense.
Well, in reality, I do think that Kyle Pitts is better long term, or this season at least, than Mooney. I think I think Pitts is finally going to show the hell up.
So you got this guy taking 3 tight ends on the other side of us, which is fun.
Yeah.
Keon just going. I like, we've talked a lot about Keon. Let's get to this question from family here. And family, yeah, in Dynasty, I'm okay at a 110. Taking Tyler Warren, absolutely unequivocally, I'm okay with that. This just falls on how I feel about him in best ball format right now.
Took him over Tootin, Bob. That's how much I feel about it.
So Monty or Najee more this year. So I have Monty, but would like to deal down a little on value and get something back. So, last year we talked a lot about David Montgomery, and David Montgomery, I think, is going to have a good amount of value this year. One of the things that I like about Najee and why I would try to target Najee and why, we suggested to you at the probably February, I think it was, where we talked about going after and targeting Najee is, when we look at where his situation is at now, and we talked about this a couple weeks back as well, but you're looking at a Chargers team who ran the ball at a pretty high rate last year. And you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, if he locks himself into the amount of carries that he could as a bell cow running back, there's going to be a really good potential for him to be within the top 10, top 15 of running back finishes within the year. And adding in the fact that with a competent running game, with Justin Herbert healthy, with a passing game that will probably feature Ladd McConkey, another rookie wide receiver, QJ. They're probably going to have an easier time moving the ball downfield if they're all healthy, which puts Najee into a position that he wasn't in last year, which is in the red zone. The Steelers didn't spend a lot of time in the red zone last year. So if Najee can buckle up, and put those numbers at like 10 rushing touchdowns, that'll be elite. That'll be really nice for him. As it goes for Montgomery, I have concerns with the loss of Ben Johnson and how and Zeigler and how they're going to utilize the two running backs now. I don't see them changing it much, but I could see a universe in which they try to feature Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit more because he is more explosive. Not saying that Montgomery's not a playmaker, but I could potentially see Monty's touchdown numbers go down a little bit. And Monty isn't really a threat right now to rush for 100 yards consistently. So I am way higher on Najee than I am on Montgomery this year. And that might change come the summer, but I think at this point in time that's where I'm at. I like.
Well, Bob, you just told me all about stacks. This next pick's going to be the quarterback stack, the guy you hate, but he will run for his life and throw touchdowns to Warren.
God, Jesus, this is the problem. Like, you don't see it. Like this.
I don't think Richardson at this point at the 13th round is a problem.
He is garbage. Absolute
all
garbage.
Right. So is Geno, so is Carr, and so is Sanders.
God. Dude. I'm going to say
this. Have some peak weeks, Bob.
He's not. I'm going to say this again and again and again and again. If you don't want to build the Indianapolis wide receivers because you never do, then there is.
He's a standalone runner.
No, he's
Fields.
Not. He isn't an asset at all. Listen, I just want to be very clear about this. That
you hate him.
after this next pick, all right, because we do need another running back, and
we're gonna take Aranda.
Ignored that position for a while.
Yeah, we're gonna take Aranda.
I will go on my personal.
But there was no receivers I liked. Like I got on a long time. I like rookie running backs. I don't like rookie receivers. Like Trey Harris, great prospect. All of that. Not going to be a good fantasy day.
I think Jalen Noel will be good. But he's in like 203, I believe.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't like going with the rookie receivers. There's just too much evidence that shows that unless you get a first rounder, they're not going to pop.
Okay.
That being said, we do already have on this roster 5 receivers.
But we're going to take.
It's not enough. We're still going to get to it, but
all right.
I'm less worried about the receiver depth than I am in most drafts. Okay. I love our running back room.
Love Puka. And he is one of those rookies that was drafted really, really late that came off. Now,
he's the one in a miracle that everyone points to. Most receivers, aside from guys, don't do shit their rookie year.
There is data to support that if you are drafted in the like 4th through 7th rounds when it comes, or 5th through 7th round when it comes to wide receivers, there is data out there to support that the hits on those wide receivers from a fantasy perspective are much less likely, although there are hits. Puka, Amon-Ra.
But for every Puka, there's 20 guys that don't even make the NFL roster.
But I like Noel. There's been good talk about Restrepo after Cam Ward's pro day. There are a couple of those wide receivers out there that are good. The 5 wide receivers that we have, they do have some injury concerns. So
we're going to stack up. We're going to get to
a good idea to get a couple of guys here too.
Yeah, I'm not fighting it, but like just take this example: a guy we normally get super late.
Hold on, before you get to that, don't ignore the fact I have to go on my Anthony Richardson rant. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Do it.
Bones,
let's hit on the Richardson.
Stephon Diggs just going to the Pats. I don't think that's good. That doesn't move the needle for me on Drake May much. But it's definitely an interesting move for Diggs.
I don't know if Diggs has anything left in the tank.
If he can have a healthy season, I think it would be really
Diggs was
really
declining before the injury. Do you really think that him being in a worse situation is going to improve him? I mean, how does that make sense?
Money, is an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing.
Well, yeah.
But what wide receiver do you want here?
I probably want Devin Neal here, actually.
You want another running back?
Because all the receivers, we don't have to worry about auto picks stealing. And there's 4 auto picks after us.
That's fine. This is Devin Neal. I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm not really in love with this team. But,
see, I am. I really think this is a strong team.
All right. I'm just gonna kind of lay this out there on the table about Anthony Richardson. Okay, Joe.
Lay it for me.
I understand that we have CJ Stroud, Michael Penix prior to this, and we're both comfortable with those 2 quarterbacks as starters. We both think those 2 quarterbacks can provide top 5 weeks. So Anthony Richardson is just who he is. But one of the reasons why we did not
this pick's probably Mike Williams. It's either Mike Williams or Tolbert or De'Ami Brown. De'Ami Brown's the number 2 in Jacksonville.
Again, I think all 3 of those are not really that great.
Yeah, but who has the biggest peak week potential? I would go with Mike Williams because he can fall in the end zone.
I mean, when we look at peak weeks for those guys in PPR leagues, maybe you can look at De'Ami, but we just talked about how Trevor Lawrence isn't really supportive of 2.
So I gotta go. Sorry, guys, it's not shown on the screen.
You scroll it down. I think you kind of botched the last 5 picks.
The last 5 picks. Bob. I remember a draft last year where I took Ladd in like the 4th round, and you lost your mind for the entire rest of the recording.
No. I didn't lose my mind about Ladd. It was a different guy. I did not lose.
No, it was Ladd because you said now we're chasing receivers the whole rest of this draft because it auto drafted wrong for us.
Right. But our team would have been much better had you took Ladd around later because we would have had another.
Well, obviously, because I was getting him in the 9th round at the time. But
that's what I'm trying to tell you. All right. A couple of things. I do want to touch on this, family. I disagree on Ford because I do think that Cleveland is going to go out and get a running back in this draft. It is very likely that Caleb Johnson will probably end up on this team. And while
I don't know about that, they'd have to trade back in the 1st for him.
There are some people. I think you're overvaluing running back this year, Joe. But the fact is that I think that they're going to be very capable of taking a running back in the 2nd round. Whoever that is, there's conversation in a bunch of different circles about who it will be. But I think Ford will have a change of pace role and go back to that role that he could thrive in. The reason why I like Garendo a little bit better is because I think both of these running backs in Ford and Garendo have potential to have, fantasy relevant days, more so than maybe Blake Corum, more so than maybe Nick Chubb right now, because he seems pretty cooked, more so than Eckler right now. Again, age cooking him pretty well. The value is both good on Garendo and Ford, so maybe you want to flip a coin, but I'm a little bit more out on Ford and I'm more in on Garendo. I'd like here, Joe. I'd like you to pick Noel, wide receiver, rookie.
And I can do him and De'Ami, by the way. But
I do agree.
You want me to take Noel? Yeah, you're right. I'm only getting one of the 2 of them because the auto draft. We'll take Noel. That's fine.
I do think that Diggs is cooked. Diggs was one of my favorite wide receivers for fantasy purposes 2 years ago. 3 years ago, I was really high on him going into the season. But yeah, I think he's absolutely cooked. We'll see what happens.
Martinez is my dude. I'm going to go with the iOS here because I'm not going to get him back.
Okay, that's fair.
The iOS, I know he's the number 3 great pass catching team.
We're sitting at 5 running backs, 7 wide receivers.
We are sitting at 5 running backs, 8 receivers.
Okay. 2 tight ends, 3 quarterbacks.
Yep.
Well, 2 quarterbacks.
You know what? Fuck you.
I'll get to
you just got to yell at us now, Bob, but you deserved it.
So Yeah, Chubb right now. Chubb is one of those fantasy assets. I have seen him in these best ball drafts go anywhere between like anywhere above some of these rookies to like in that Tyler Algier kind of framework. He has been climbing up the board a little bit more, but after his injury last year, he looked really cooked. And if, same thing about like, we said this about Isaiah Pacheco, that some of these injuries for Chubb have been really, really brutal. And
Mhm.
it's taken a guy that's like was once a first round running back, elite level talent, to being drafted next to Ray Davis. Now, would you rather take a chance on Chubb or Ray Davis? I mean, that's purely speculation at that point in time. I'd probably stay away from both of them. But in this area, if you have him on your roster, you really can't trade him for anything. I mean, you are going to get weird offers like Gabe Davis. You could probably get like Jaleel McLaughlin or something stupid like that. But and Bones, I, you know, I when the Steelers end up signing a quarterback, and hopefully it's not Aaron Rodgers, I will be delusional again as well,
It's almost certainly going to be Aaron Rodgers. Just
hoping that the
accept it.
season will go well. But we're only a couple of, and I just want to bring this up because this is a statement also about Cooper Kupp, right? Is that both Diggs and Cooper Kupp at one point in time in their career had produced elite level fantasy production that we were drafting them in the first round.
Oh, yeah.
Injuries and age have seemed to have caught up with them in terms of their on-field abilities and production. And so when you're taking a chance on a guy like Diggs and you're the New England Patriots, I do still think that the New England Patriots are going to take a wide receiver in this draft. But it feels to me that a guy like Diggs at this point in his career, although he has been like a prima donna at times, I think that he will be a useful asset in trying to do some mentoring on this team. I don't think he's going to produce anything from an elite statistical, in terms of fantasy production, but I do think that he is going to serve to get Jalen Polk, get Demario Douglas, get Kayshon Boutte to play at a higher level than they have in the past.
All right, Bob, tight end, Fannin Jr., who I don't think we should take as rookie, Sanders, Musgrave, Gray, Disley.
Take Gray. I don't like any of that.
Well, it's the second last pick in the draft.
I like Gray, but yeah, and a lot of teams, when we look at final pieces, I was talking with someone the other day that on TikTok, actually, I was, sent them a message and whatnot. There was like weird conversation, weird chatter, again, rumor mill conversations about Micah Parsons getting traded to Tua. And I said to them, I was like, that's not going to help them at all. I mean, you look at a team like Miami, and one of the things that they needed was health in their quarterback room from a guy like Tua. And you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, how many teams are one piece away? How many teams right now in the NFL are one piece away?
Baltimore.
And
Buffalo.
maybe it's like 5.
There's 4 in the AFC. I would say Cincinnati is one extra pass rusher away because that would make their defense average. Baltimore's one pass rusher away. What's that?
Bengals defense is terrible. They're
yeah, but if you put a second pass rusher on, they can be average, and that's all they need to be. If you put a legit pass rusher next to Hubbard there, that could be an
but
average.
Didn't they move him?
Not yet.
Or aren't they planning to move him?
They're talking about it, but now they're saying they want to bring him back. If they bring Hubbard back, if they have 2 pass rushers with the leads they'll have, Cincinnati's there. Baltimore's the same deal. They need another pass rusher. Buffalo needs one offensive stud who's not named Josh Allen that they can rely on.
Probably.
But I mean, that's one piece.
But again, the point
I can say the Rams already have what they need.
But the
Philly
point
has what they need. Detroit has what they need.
Not many teams, and especially not the New England Patriots, are one piece away.
Oh, God, no. The Patriots are 22 pieces away.
And when you look at the amount of money that they just sunk into Diggs, we talked earlier in the offseason about the amount of draft capital they had the amount of the salary cap they had, and they used it on Diggs when they could have went out and got Cooper. I don't really think that either of those guys from a fantasy perspective are going to be super, super relevant.
Nope.
But, if I'm building a back end Drake May stack, maybe where did Diggs go, by the way, in this draft with the news that he signed with
he actually was taken before the news broke, unless I'm mistaken. Diggs was taken at
No, that news broke yesterday, dude.
sorry. Well, then he was taken
8th round.
8-3.
That's way too high.
That's way too high.
I would have rather taken Ayuk or Bateman at that
We'd
point.
rather have Warren than him.
Okay, back to this. Anthony Richardson. One of the things that we have said on broadcast a bunch of times is that magical kind of threshold for a fantasy relevant quarterback performance being around like 25, 28. And so that's what I want to kind of project forward, is that anywhere within that range, maybe you drop it down to 24, anywhere within that range is kind of where I'm comfortable taking quarterbacks that have the potential to reach that. We go to last year, and one of the worst things about Anthony Richardson, and I talked about this, I believe, last year on why him coming back from the injury, why I might take a chance on him on the waiver wire if I had the ability to, is that looking at his completion percentage, it is bad.
Mm-hmm.
You look at it, and throughout the games that he played last year, 47, 50, 50, 75, because that was only 4 passes and he completed
that doesn't count.
Them. 41, 31, 66, 39, 50, 44, 63. Okay. He had 4 games last year where he passed 30 times. And one of the things that I want to bring up is that in those games, he had less than a 50% completion percentage. One of them, he had 66. So 2 of them less than 50, one of them 66. Okay. Not in any one of them did he pass the ball for over 300 yards when he even had a high completion percentage like that. When you look at, okay, his market should be with his legs. So you're drafting him and saying, I need a guy that's going to make plays with his legs. Mm-hmm. He had a total of 6 touchdowns on the ground last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, his highest rushing total was around 70 yards. You look at even those performances where he did the optimal thing that he should have done with his abilities. Okay. I'm going to read you his weekly fantasy finishes. 4, 21, 31, 31, 23, 25, 4, 21, 9, 16, 14.
I just need him for those 2 4s, man. Stroud, I think, is going to be amazing consistently.
Here and this is why that magical number that I've been saying is so important, is that when he hit those 4s, he was at 27 and 28. But in order to do that, though, he rushed for 2 touchdowns in one game.
Yeah, it's the only way he's doing it. I'm not saying that he's not the starter.
This is the Kyler Murray kind of effect where it's like,
he was the 3rd last quarterback drafted in this draft, and we needed a 3rd quarterback.
I get it. But one of the things that I want, that I just want you to get across, is that there is already rumblings within the organization by signing Daniel Jones to a weird contract like they did, and then saying, before the offseason even kicks off for these teams, that there's going to be an open quarterback battle.
Well, they have to say that.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. You drafted this guy so high. He was highly regarded by you. And now you're saying, oh, he's in an open quarterback battle. And then last year, oh, we might even go back to Joe Flacco. What I'm saying to you is that
I think the guy's going to learn how to be a little bit more accurate. I don't think he's become Josh Allen change.
Again,
I think he'll become a little more accurate.
Again, if I'm going out there and I'm getting Anthony Richardson, if that's what
family, I respect that, but when there's none left and you need a 3rd, I'm not putting Shedeur Sanders on my roster ever.
And here's where I think
misclick and it'll never happen again.
I think your viewpoint about Shedeur is how I feel how you might feel how I feel about Anthony Richardson. Because what I want to say,
barring athleticism, they're the same guy. I'll give you that.
This is the thing I want to say here, is that
although Shadeur's a little accurate,
if
he does deserve that.
If you want to build Anthony Richardson, then it would be, I think,
But,
in your best
look, this isn't like
interest.
I built Anthony Richardson.
But you
I
took him.
needed a quarterback at the end that wasn't Shador.
I get what you're saying. But I don't think you're hearing what I'm saying. Is that Anthony Richardson as an asset in fantasy is only going to be an asset 2 or 3 games a year, is what you're telling me. And that the stats backed it up. And that's fair. But what I'm saying to you is his chance to be on the field this year is going to be less.
See, I don't buy any of that. And the reason I don't buy it is because he will win every ties, and I actually think he'll improve. I don't think Daniel Jones is that good to begin with.
I don't think Daniel Jones is good to begin with either, but I don't think that either of these guys.
If Fields was there, I would be 100% with you. If Fields was the guy fighting him instead of Daniel Jones, Fields would be the starter.
So, but this is kind of the market that I'm talking about, though.
Yeah,
is that when you draft Tyler Warren and CJ Stroud, and this is just to speak, I'm off Anthony Richardson, but I want to get back on the idea of a Houston stack and how this affects the overall.
I love this Houston stack.
Hold on, how it affects the overall build of your team is, while the Houston stack is nice, the Nico, the Christian Kirk, the CJ Stroud, I love it. I'm okay with everything about that. But scroll down to that middle round there.
Where we went with
right here. This framework right here, okay, is that looking at what you've got in this situation here. Obviously, quarterbacks were a little bit higher drafted in this specific room.
They were.
So building around that, it can be a little bit tricky. But when you look at CJ Stroud and then going with a Penix there, building that CJ Stroud and then building directly after that a Christian Kirk, because you're building that Houston stack, locks you out of some quarterbacks that we tend to like a little bit more.
You're right. I could have taken Dak instead of Kirk.
But again, and that's what I'm saying.
I don't know how much of a difference there really is between them and Penix. I mean,
but
I would rather have had 2 of them Penix at the moment, but I don't know how much of a difference there really is.
This stack, so this Houston stack, because it's usually in that 9th to 10th round. What happens is you're locking yourself out of some of those rookie wide receivers that have the chance to be super explosive. You're also kind of locking yourself, and by doing it with Tyler Warren, I think that.
Well, that's so the difference. Had we not committed to Houston, Warren would have been around later, and Caleb Johnson would have been the pick. So really, by doing it this way, we put Christian Kirk on the roster instead of Caleb Johnson. That's ultimately the trade that we did.
But also, what I just kind of want to say about this specific example is that while the Houston stack is necessarily not a bad thing, not inherently bad, we also have a lot of wide receivers at the top half that are really good, that can take some of that pain away a little bit.
Mm-hmm. We also have injury risk receivers.
When I look at these 6 rounds that we have: Tyler Warren, CJ Stroud, Christian Kirk, Michael Penix, Kyle Pitts, and then who's the guy we took, another quarterback, Anthony Richardson.
How'd you forget him?
Okay, we look at those 6 rounds specifically, and while the ancillary pieces all around it from a general team build, like maybe Kincaid. Maybe we like Kincaid a little bit more. Maybe we think Kincaid will come back. Maybe we like, taking a chance on a guy like QJ, or taking a chance on Bryce Young or whatever. Or maybe we built a Jake Ferguson instead of a Kyle Pitts. We look at this room and we say, okay, Tyler Warren being the start of this kind of run that we had. You look at these 6 players, and out of these 6 players, only 2 of them conceivably will be sitting our lineup, right? Mm-hmm. In any given week. So we look at the tight end. So we have Tyler Warren and Kyle Pitts. You believe in Tyler Warren a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm fine with that. And you think
Pitts is warming up on me. He
Maybe
really is.
maybe he hits 15 points. Maybe Kyle Pitts hits 15 points. The net difference between Kyle Pitts and Tyler Warren in any given week is probably going to be around like 2, maybe 3 points.
That being said, Bob, I kind of think I like more the combination of Dak and Ferguson than Penix and Pitts.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like what I'm
get Dak. Yeah,
that's kind of like what I'm getting at is that like if you are so highly vested, which you are, and family, we've talked about this too, and everybody in the chat, we've talked about this as well, is that if you are so highly invested in Tyler Warren, it doesn't make any sense to kind of take Kyle Pitts within the same 4 picks.
Well, the reason for that was so we had someone on Penix. The real issue, if we want to break this draft down, the real issue is that the quarterbacks went so much higher than normal. We weren't ready for
I feel that, family.
I mean, that's the reality.
I mean, there is a reality where this I think this is going to continue to happen. When you look at the quarterbacks, especially in these early best balls, once
I still think Baker into 7th is too early. Stand by it. Baker at the beginning of the 7th is too early.
Once Best Ball Mania comes around, personally, once Best Ball Mania comes around, I think that some of these quarterback situations are going to kind of saw themselves off a little bit because we'll have the draft, we'll have a clearer picture of what the correlated values are for these quarterbacks, especially in week 17. Mm-hmm. So I could see a discussion where Jordan Love will no longer be a 10th round quarterback. I could see a discussion where Drake May will probably not be, might fall to the 12th, where Sam Darnold might come up a little bit higher. When we look at, extreme values, Darnold's sitting there right now in the 12th round. And I think on Monday, we ended up getting him in like the 14th round or something like that.
Yeah, that's more normal.
I think that Darnold is a great value play. Now, I'm not shitting on Penix at all, but, family says here that the mid quarterbacks all moved up. But there was still value for those top 30 guys as a QB3 a few rounds later. Yeah. I mean,
but what I'm trying to say, family, is I panicked. I thought we were going to run out of one, and I'm not comfortable just with Stroud and Penix, both of which missed more than a combined full season last year. So I need to have a third one, and not saying Anthony Richardson is the pillar of health, but my choices were Shedeur, Richardson, or Ward.
But so I guess the other point that I want to bring up is that in those 5 rounds, so Tyler Warren, CJ Stroud, Michael Penix, Pitts, and Richardson, you took 5 onesie positions.
Yeah, but it also was the 8th round and after. We'd already filled the rest of the roster.
I feel that, but one of the things that I want to bring up on why I want scroll down so family can see who was after Richardson. Not much, to be honest.
It was Garendo, Neal, Mike Williams,
no,
Noel, the iOS, Gray, and Whittington.
I would have been okay with Geno Smith in the 16th. I'd have been okay with Derek Carr in the 16th. I'd have been okay with.
See, I'm not okay with
Wilson, in the 17th.
Carr. I'm not okay with any of them, quite frankly.
I am, because they have just the same likelihood as Anthony Richardson to pop off for a top 10 week as Anthony Richardson does.
I disagree with that. I don't think Cam Ward,
Anthony Richardson is not a productive passer. He's not a productive passer.
If you don't get to 300 yards passing in DraftKings, you're not going to get to the top 10. I don't think any of them. Russell Wilson will never get to the 300-yard mark. Carr might. Smith maybe. And under Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers never would, and that's the only chance he plays this year. So
you want to go?
I don't see anyone getting the bonus. The only chance of a bonus is he runs for 100.
All right. So let's take it. So just taking a look, and this is just from Fantasy Pros, looking at Derek Carr last year, right?
Give me Carr, baby.
Derek Carr last year had 3.
We might just need to rename this episode Anthony Richardson is the worst quarterback ever, and Joe messed up.
Had 3 top 6 finishes last year. Nothing over into the 25 market. But if CJ Stroud is working well for us, Anthony Richardson isn't utilized. We look at Geno. Everybody wanted Geno to be better last year. So we look at Geno Smith last year, and Geno is sitting here at, he passed for 395 yards, 327 yards, 314 yards. And he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 top 10 finishes as a passer.
That amazes me.
So,
he's also on a different roster now, though, so we'll see how it goes.
I get it, but it's not. It's. I mean,
who's he throwing the ball to in Vegas that's getting 300 yards? I mean, Bowers.
He's thrown to Jacoby and he's thrown to Brock Bowers.
See, so, I'm not that big on Jacoby. Family, to answer your question here about your trade, of all of the 3 players you mentioned, Gabe Davis, Josh Palmer, and Chubb, Palmer is by far the one head and shoulders of that group. So, especially now that he's the number 3.
Palmer is in a better situation.
Maybe even the number 2 in Buffalo.
I think Palmer's in a better situation. But I think they're going to draft a guy too.
So, anyway, Bob, that kind of concludes today, unless you're still bitching at me about Richardson.
No. I'm just saying that I think that maybe in a future episode, as we look at draft capital and we think about how to attack these onesie positions, scroll up a little bit, that I think that the most optimal,
maybe that's what we'll call it, dominating the onesies.
The most optimal route probably would be to skip Worthy in the 4th round, build the running back in that 4th round, take another.
I actually think we won that, because from that 4th round pick of Worthy, the only running back I missed on that I would have preferred is Morgan Hampton. I'm totally okay with Hubbard.
This isn't about Worthy. I'm just saying from a build perspective is that.
But what I'm saying is I hate the running backs in that neighborhood right now. I like the 1st round running backs, the early 2nd round running backs, and then no one until the 5th.
I feel you, but I think maybe the attack strategy when building one of these onesie positions is to do something like this. Nico, Achane, Evans, Worthy. Coming back around, you could take a Sutton or Chuba still if you want to, scroll down. And this is what I'm getting at, though, is that then your Trevion Henderson and Judkins, one of those picks could be Baker. That Baker pick, then taking Stroud where you.
So you're saying by going, instead of at that point where we were a 4-4, 4 running backs, 4 receivers, be 3 receivers, 4 running backs, and Baker. I'm okay with exploring that next time.
Like then you can take Baker, Stroud, and then your last quarterback
doesn't matter.
Could be a Geno or a Darnold where you don't really need them, but you're not.
Yeah, because we also wouldn't have taken Penix.
You're not taking those 3 onesie positions, as I was saying, in a row, because while Richardson could allot you a 28-point fantasy performance, it is much more likely that he doesn't.
That being said, though, I love that start we have with
I like
this.
Receivers. I like this spot, and I think building out a Baker, because Baker seems to have fallen. I'm not sure why. Baker's ADP is a little weird, but how people feel about Baker is even weirder because they're going to be under another offensive coordinator, and Baker has floated anywhere between round 4 and round 7 in drafts.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And I think especially if you're building Mike Evans, as you do
I wouldn't mind doing a Tampa stack in the next draft.
A Tampa onslaught worked very well last year for most DFS lineups. And then Mike Evans with a Bucky in the 2nd round and a Baker in the 7th round is a nice
we'd have to be like 11th to justify
nice little 2-1 stack. There are ways, Joe, and I'm not gonna I know I was just shitting on.
Well, when we got Evans in the 3rd, if we got Bucky in the 2nd, we could do a good Tampa stack.
Yeah, a nice.
That's what we got to do.
There. And
all right, that's our future, guys. You heard Monday's show in the preview.
That the Achane build in the 2nd round with a wide receiver in the 1st round, that the Achane build opens you up to a nice potential Tua stack a little bit later as well. And if Michael Penix is on our radar, which he has been for quite some time, I do want to think about starting to build, depending on where we're at, a Drake London, because we haven't built a Drake London. Again,
I will give you Bijan, Mooney, Penix, but London, Like, no, London is never going to be bad enough to be considered a bust.
In the second round,
but London's not going to be an all-pro or either.
If you're sitting up there in the top 4 picks, and let's say you took Chase, and then you took JT, and London's still sitting there. It's an interesting.
You're not going to convince me of London. It's not going to. It's a debate we're going to have all year long.
14 wide receivers. That's insane, especially in Dynasty. That's still crazy.
That's all right. Well, all guys, it was awesome today.
We'll be back Monday, 3:45 Eastern Standard Time. So keep an eye out. We're gonna do another draft. Hopefully it won't include Anthony Richardson, but we will see. So 3:45 Monday Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
And let us know what you think about this cruise, guys. We want to hear your comments. Fantasy football fans unite. On July 29th, we're going to be hosting a fantasy football cruise. There's going to be an array of fantasy experts discussing every team in the NFL. Who are their favorite players? Who's the best sleepers? Who are the landmines? At Best Ball Draft so you can dominate your league. This is going to take place on the Margaritaville Islander at Sea, where you and your +1 are going to get all of these benefits. A stateroom with a balcony, the all-you-can-eat food package, the premium deluxe beverage package, the best entertainment on board, en route to 2 of the prettiest beaches in the world at Key West, Florida and Cozumel, Mexico. Surrounded by fun and getting this world-class fantasy football experience. We can't wait to see you July 29th on this elite business cruise.